Welcome once again to the fine ears, listeners, and people who decree it wise to spend their time in the warm comfort of Jeremiad. Although it is no sunshine and rainbows we offer today, instead the pinprick needles of society's slithering into a vague state of synthetic augmentation. We speak of Ozempic. Ozempic has become the mouthpiece or the most established brand name for a rather revolutionary drug, a great product of Big Pharma by the name of semaglutide. And semaglutide effectively increases the levels of incretins, hormones, which are naturally produced by the stomach when you eat. So the drug works by helping one's body to produce more insulin when needed. It also reduces the amount of glucose or sugar produced by the liver and slows down how quickly food is digested. This all acts to lower blood sugar levels and HbA1c. Effectively, it's a drug that's proven rather effective with the treatment of diabetes. However, that's not what it's been most used for. There seems to have been some wonderful side effect discovered that it can lead to weight loss. Hence, the Ozempic climate that we find ourselves currently sizzling in.
I have been wanting to actually decrease my HbA1c QZFL recently, so this sounds like a miracle drug. Like, sign me up, right? Like, surely there's nothing bad about Ozempic. It's all good. It's the miracle drug that everyone should be taking, right? It's the cool drug. It's the hip drug. It comes in different brands. It comes in Wegovy or Mounjaro. So surely there's nothing wrong with it, Andy.
In the same way that eating McDonald's Happy Meal provides no ill feeling or detrimental effects on the body, absolutely. It is evocative of the shortcut society that we live in. When when something is used other than its intended purpose, there's always going to be grey areas, and those grey areas in this case are festering potholes threatening to engulf whole motorways, yet still we seek the flyover.
Absolutely. That sort of really encapsulates Ozempic and its sort of society's attitude to not just health, but to many things in life. So taking the easy route, not wanting to put the effort in, because losing weight is a journey. It's a commitment. It's not just something you do, a couple hours a day or one day a week. It's a lifestyle change. Effectively, is what it is. You have to change your diet. You should probably start exercising. You're going to have to resist those cravings. And look, I have a sweet tooth. I'll come out and admit it. Like, how badly I wanted that donut when we were in Soho.
That's true. That's very true.
But I was not willing to be a fucking schmuck and queue to get one. Let's put that on the record right now. But it's not difficult to lose weight, and I want to just also disclaimer accept that it's a lot harder for some than it is for others. Everyone's different. Everyone's body reacts differently. People have overactive thyroids. It's a thing. But why bother putting in all that effort? Why change your lifestyle? Why put up with the inconvenience of having to do that, having to go to the gym, put in some effort when you can just have it all in an injection? People are being sold a shortcut to weight loss and thinking that it's going to just sort of magically improve everything.
Yeah, exactly that. It acts to completely reframe how we view and understand not even weight loss, but the bodily health in a wider sense, I think. The way that it works is effectively to mimic a hormone that regulates appetite. So it tricks the brain into thinking that the body is full. Therefore, people will eat less because the hunger signals aren't being sent. So it's not exactly the healthiest method of losing weight, and there's concerns also to the sustainability of it, because again, like you say, if someone decides or wishes or is told that they need to lose weight to make healthier choices or alter their lifestyle, then that's what you do. You alter the style by which you live your life. As you say, it is a commitment. This isn't a 2-week boot camp. And you make that change because you want that change to stick. This isn't just going on holiday for a week and imbibing nothing but pina coladas. So the very real concern and fallacy with Ozempic and its many other named cousins is that the changes that you'll see and the mesmerizing weight loss that it can achieve while you are on the drug is one thing, but then poses the question of coming off the drug. And there are very real fears about the reliance and the tolerance that is built up to using it. So, for example, the second that you stop taking it, the body's surely going to be quite confused, and I can imagine send almost an overload of hunger signals to try and compensate, leading to probably eating more than you have done, maybe more than you did before even starting taking the drug. So therefore undoing all the progress. There's other factors as well about the effects it has on other bodily functions, on other organs. Food is probably one of the biggest sources of nutrients that people feed their bodies with, nutrients that are essential for healthy functioning of all different aspects of the very complex bodies that we have. We already live in a world that's submerged in supplements, which, by definition have been sort of confused. Supplement is something to go alongside. It's something to aid. It's not necessarily to entirely replace one's intake of something, but so many people live supplement heavy lives believing that by taking this one pill, whatever it might be, vitamin D or omega-3 or just something inane and harmless like that then you don't need to ingest that through sources of food, and you can almost that it justifies poorer diet or more taste chosen foods. And there's so many ways to unpick the evils of Ozempic.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think Ozempic and these other weight loss drugs are often marketed as like a quick solution, easy fix, no effort way of losing weight. And actually, as you said, all it really does is interferes with the brain signals to fool your body into thinking it's full. It's not just a case, and I think some people believe, I can still continue to eat terrible foods. I can still continue to have my Happy Meal and my pizza and all this stuff, and as long as I take Ozempic, it's fine. What I think people don't realize is that they do ironically have to have some sort of shift in lifestyle alongside the Ozempic. It's not just enough to take it and continue eating the way you have been doing if you've been eating poorly. Because that's the other thing as well. A lot of people who take Ozempic aren't necessarily massively overweight. It's just sort of like yummy mummies who want to lose a little bit of that winter insulation in order to look good for the Instagram beach pictures. I think people don't realize that. And also there's it's not just kind of you can take it for a couple of weeks or a month or two, lose weight and then stop taking it. Lots of studies have shown that as soon as people stop taking Ozempic, and if they haven't made any adjustments to their diet or their lifestyle, they'll just put that weight right back on. Like in the majority of cases, people have maybe not gone back to their original weight, but they've definitely sort of gone back up again on the scales. And so what it is, and I can't believe Big Pharma would do something like this, where they also create a drug that, maybe not intentionally at first, but I'm sure when they realize, whoa, we can get people dependent on a weight loss drug, they're going to have to keep on taking it. But we don't know the real long-term effects. Effectively, at the moment, the people who are taking it are just guinea pigs, because no studies have been able to be done on what taking Ozempic does to your body over a sustained period of time. I mean, already some doctors and scientists predict, it could actually sort of physically change your digestion. It can lead to a decrease in bone density, all sorts of things that we just don't know yet. So who knows, in sort of 5-6 years' time, it could lead to another health crisis, which would be ironic considering that hopefully going to sort of help with the obesity crisis. I mean, I was just reading the other day that the government hopes to save something like £4.5 billion a year in treating obesity by giving out fat jabs to people on the NHS. I mean, good grief. The government taking shortcuts as well? Who would have thought? It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Well, that's the problem right there. It is effectively systemic because at the same time there is an element of it being a shortcut for the user and making their perceived weight loss journey or bodily aspirations easier to achieve and far more convenient. You think about the state of the NHS, but obviously with a specific focus on the UK, the health service here, the NHS has been in turgid state of downfall for many years now and is struggling to cope with the amount of patients it has. Does the convenience not also appeal in that lens just as much, that for the health service, instead of having to see all these patients and maybe involve the help of nutritionalists, physiotherapists, like personal trainers, maybe people to help almost develop entire programs for people to better control and move forward with their lives and their bodies and have a better grasp on their weight and things like that. If instead, all the time, the effort, the resource, the money of dealing with a patient, you can just issue these jabs, that makes life so much easier for them. And, I don't think it's even a case of considering the sort of moral or ethical dilemma from their point of view, because they're just not in a position, they have no ground to stand on at all. Really, they're just under immense pressure to cut down waiting lists and treat patients. And that's what this is being boiled down to, is get the patient off the books as quick as possible. And nothing does that as fast as the swift release of an injection. You mentioned about the people taking them now being guinea pigs, and I sort of see a big similarity with vapes, the modern trend for vapes, that again, recently something has actually been done, hasn't it? And the disposable vapes in particular have been banned, which is a move in the right direction, but it's the same shit in a different can, really. They're new and shiny, branded, and extremely targeted in terms of consumer demographics. But there's so little research on the long-term effects of usage. So how can anyone actually be sure that these things are safe or trust engaging with it? I mean, cigarettes, everyone knows that cigarettes are bad for you, to put it mildly. Every single person that smokes a cigarette, I find it very hard to believe there are people in this world that smoke a cigarette that aren't aware that that is causing them harm. So I think you engage with it in full consciousness. You know that it's a bit of a deal with the devil. Whereas these young kids token on their, blueberry candy, cotton candy vapes that think that it's harmless, Lord knows the damage that they're doing, and they're just stocking up problems for later down the line. But hey, I'm sure by then there'll be some kind of magic serum that can increase lung capacity or undo the damage that they're spiraling into. I think a key thing for me with this, again, you speak about the kind of people that are taking the drug, and the yummy mummy depiction, and I think a lot of the appeal is purely for aesthetic. There's a lot of people that have claimed to take it or have aspirations of taking it that you wouldn't necessarily even categorize as obese or think that their health depends on it, but it becomes a status thing. It becomes the cool thing to engage with, people wanting to be hip or on the pulse. And like with so many other things that are a source of peril in this world and that Jeremiad has pointed the finger at previously, it comes down to celebrity endorsement. A lot of people's first exposure to Ozempic and semaglutide and the really powerful influx of these drugs into mainstream modern society and thought is through celebrities that have, well, whether they have or haven't used them, they've certainly said that they've used them and spoken glowingly and, established this reputation as it being something cool to engage with effectively.
Circle back to your point with kids. I mean, look, the kids are vaping, but at least they're not taking Ozempic, right? Wrong. Okay, that's wrong. There are Ozempic kids out there now. They have found, I was reading this in a certain newspaper, which is very trustworthy, and some doctors in the UK, you kind of expect this sort of thing in America where I feel like the threshold for approving drugs is very low, But in the UK, we've had doctors giving overweight children Ozempic or other weight loss drugs in order to help them lose weight. I mean, kids, for goodness sake, at that age, it should be quite easy to lose weight. Kids are full of energy. Get them in the playground. PE is mandatory in school. Like, get them running around. Educate them about nutrition. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, and then again, it's sort of you're locking them in at such a young age. If you're making them dependent on weight loss drugs as a child, that's just such a bad start. I mean, surely, explore the alternatives first. But for the manufacturers of these drugs, that's a win-win situation. I mean, the younger it's the same with the cigarette companies, with the vapes. The younger you can get them, you've got a customer for life then. It's also, I think it's very damaging to children's, physical and mental well-being to be giving them weight loss drugs. I mean, imagine, you're like 8 years old and the doctor, oh yeah, you're so fucking fat, here's an injection, that's the only way to help. And interestingly, they found with some of these kids, one of the great ironies of giving them the weight loss drugs was it was actually altering their mood. Because as you say, it's sort of, it's not just, it does have an effect on the brain. And it found that these kids ultimately became even lazier. They didn't want to do anything. They were almost showing signs of what some would call clinical depression. They're just sitting in their rooms all day, not wanting to be active, which is like rule number one of losing weight: get out, do some exercise. So it's wild, and I think it's very dangerous when you're experimenting with the health of particularly children. If we don't know the long-term impacts on adults, how is it going to affect kids who are developing? Their brains are developing. They'll obviously, they're growing. If it has an impact on bone density, is it going to affect growth? Who knows? It's very dangerous, and particularly when you're giving it to children, I think that's a massive risk you're taking. I think it could end up, ironically, creating more health issues, putting more strain on the NHS in the future, and it's that sort of unintended consequences that we see. I mean, cigarettes were initially branded as a healthy pastime, weren't they?
Yeah.
Of course, we know that's a lie. So that's the first thing I wanted to say on the kids. On the celebrity side of things, I think you're absolutely right. It's the hip drug, it's the Hollywood drug.
Yes,
is what it is. People will always be influenced by what celebrities are doing because that's a lifestyle they want to aspire to. I mean, I know Oprah has lost a lot of weight. She said it's thanks to Ozempic. Hollywood's funniest actress, Amy Schumer, who I'm sure we all want to assimilate, has taken it. And of course, our big buddy, Elon Musk, Ozempic Santa.
Yeah. So that was an interesting point, though, wasn't it, Mr. Musk? So he tweeted a picture of himself dressed as Santa, captioning it "Ozempic Santa," which in itself is just like such a confusing misnomer and just riddled with nonsense, isn't it? How much nonsense you can create in 2 words, good lord. But he then took steps later to clarify that it was actually Monjaro, that he was taking, but that Manjaro doesn't have the same ring to it, which just further enforces this brand fetishization that we have, and the status aspect in particular. And I think why, Ozempic has become the kind of the global term for it. Even if someone is maybe taking one of the other variations, they're probably just using shorthand Ozempic, aren't they? Or again, I wonder how many people that would know of and speak of Ozempic even know that it's semaglutide, even though that's actually the thing that they are taking.
And I also think as well with the Ozempic Santa, it just distorts the idea of what Santa is and who he is. He is a bit fat. He is overweight. He's jolly,
Yeah.
thin. I mean,
Who
how
wants a
utter
thin
woke
Santa?
nonsense to have a thin Santa. You
Yeah.
know, I thought Santa wouldn't care about his appearance.
Of course. Why would he? Well, this is the same Santa that we've seen drinking countless bottles of Coca-Cola previously, and toasting a big red belly and being quite happily jovial and almost acting to normalize plus size in a way before that did become a trend amongst society, which now we're seeing kind of reverted, through Ozempic, and a lot of celebrity faces that really flew that flag for body positivity and embracing, plus size models, for example, and really spearheading the push in society, are the first ones to jump on the bandwagon and start taking the hip drug and try and shrink down, however many dress sizes they think gives them a greater degree of currency or interest. Another thing that really bemuses me about the aspect of celebrities endorsing this drug and air quotes taking it, because I'm not fully convinced. Call me a cynic, but I don't believe everything celebrities say. Again, these celebrities, people, as you rightly say, people clamour around them for the perceived lifestyles they have. They live such great lives soaked in opulence and wealth, and they have all the resources and means available to them. Well, surely then, why on earth they'd be the last people that would need a drug like this? We're constantly told, aren't we, about the average citizen about the need to exercise or make healthier choices in your eating and living, in how you spend your time, in how you can make more money, in a side hustle, all of that kind of nonsense that's completely detached from reality. And these celebrities that preach to us and endorse the pre-existing trends of healthy living, that all, without a doubt, have access to far better quality food and drink than the average proletariat, probably all have gyms and even pools at home, personal trainers, superfood supplements that we literally can't afford. They have all the tools necessary to sculpt themselves as the gods we depict them as, yet here they are rushing to take Ozempic immediately. And you do make a valid point earlier when you said, obviously weight loss is not the same journey for everyone. We are not cardboard cutouts. And sure, there are going to be some celebrities that are exactly the same. Maybe they have underlying weight issues. They do struggle in a certain way. But I still believe that the balance, the scale of the resources they have would outweigh the need to just undercut all of that with the convenience of a jab. But then again, convenience itself is a hell of a drug.
It's very unlike celebrities, in my opinion, to jump on social trends and bandwagons for their own benefit. I can't believe they would do that. I mean, what you said about the body positivity movement there is, it was all, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago, it was all sort of, love yourself, embrace who you are. If you are plus size, then that's okay. Lots of companies, and again, companies are arbiters of social change. They really are. They do things for the good of society and not for profit or revenue or public relations or anything like that. And we had lots of, lingerie companies, clothing brands, and they'd get the plus size models in, really, really to show that what that they're about social justice, and with no ulterior motive whatsoever. And now it's almost coming, like sort of full circle where we're going back to skinny, skinny, skinny. That's the desired body type. And from a health perspective, yes, absolutely. It is obviously, of course, you want a healthy BMI. And we've seen this historically, this sort of emphasis on looking a certain way, and particularly for women. I know it does apply to men as well, but there's no doubt that particularly for women and for young girls, that what they'll see in magazines and on social media, particularly now, places like Instagram, there's this sort of desired body type. And I think it's really damaging for, body image, for mental health, when it's sort of just this narrative is you've got to be skinny, you've got to be skinny. Well, here's a drug for that, it is that fine balance between sort of encouraging people to be healthy, to have a healthy body, but also not, you don't want to sort of fat shame, or you don't want to encourage people to lose too much weight or put too much emphasis on that. But I think what Ozempic, and sort of with it being all trendy, and the brand, like you said, it's almost like a lot of the time we call vacuum cleaners Hoovers, but Hoover's just a brand, but that's the brand it's taken, right? Ozempic is the Hoover of vacuum cleaners. That's what it is. And you know what it's doing? It's sucking up people's confidence and money, ultimately. I mean, I don't know how much Ozempic even costs, to be honest. I assume it's not cheap. I mean, the celebrities can afford it. They probably don't even pay for it.
But that's exactly the thing. I wouldn't
be surprised if there's, Ozempic representatives are just handing out free jabs. Oh, let's send some of these to Oprah. Let's send them to Musk or whatever. Because it's great for them having that celebrity endorsement. It's fantastic for those companies. And look, I'm not a conspiracist, but I am a cynic. And I would not be surprised at all if there's some insider deal here where these companies are, let's get a couple of celebs to endorse this, and then people are going to follow on that, particularly in America, where the sort of healthcare system is so kind of, it is more of a market in that sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
As opposed to what it is over here. So yeah, maybe I wouldn't be surprised if we get a knock at the door soon from Ozempic, just wanting to put a little sponsorship in on the podcast. I guess we'd have to get fat first for that to work, but
well, not necessarily though. Again, when you consider the consensus of those who have clamoured around the drug and wanted to take it up, I think you're dead right though. So it's a basic marketing principle, isn't it? If you can get those perceived as desirable to speak favourably of the product, it's just a designer handbag in a different shawl. Thing as well about the body positivity movement, a large crux of that was about a shift in understanding towards health and almost redefining what it is to be healthy, viewing it through a lens of, what is healthy for one person might not necessarily be for another. So I find that really interesting, not necessarily just the acceptable beauty standards aspect that's very much the surface of this, but it does seem like a complete regression in terms of, like a scientific understanding of the bodily function, and now just kind of throwing all of that progress under the bridge and just packing it up neatly in a convenient drug that will instigate our universal version of healthy. I think there's something very seedy about that, and something very homogenous, which goes against the grain of humanity and the individuality that we all champion and celebrate. It acts to undermine that. What it effectively does is spread a wave of insecurity, because even if you had worked and got to a point where you felt a degree of, I wouldn't even necessarily say confident, but just comfortable or fairly stable in your body and how you perceive yourself, how you think society perceives you, all of a sudden now there's just this mad influx of doubt being spread everywhere about that, isn't there? And all of a sudden when you might have looked in the mirror yesterday and thought, yeah, I like me, I'm okay, this is fine. You might look again today and actually just all of a sudden all those flaws are twice as apparent. I think as well there's something really dangerous about the culture of misuse. An accidental side effect that was discovered that is now the entire focus, and a huge industry is building up around it. Again, the mindset of justification, as you touched on earlier, quite rightly so, that instead of it encouraging, even if it encouraged like 5% of healthier habits while using the drug, there is just an element of, oh, well, I'm using the drug, so therefore I'm not as hungry, so it matters less what I do eat. So, it could even make diets far worse. The stronghold this industry is going to have on society is just frightening. I mean, Big Pharma already has huge hands, not even in the pie, but holding the pie as a whole. But as we read the other day about Novo Nordisk, who is the Danish firm behind Wegovy and Ozempic, they are now, at the point of us recording this, they are now Europe's second most valuable company, with an estimated value of just over £227 billion. That is fucking frightening. And that translates to a lot of power and influence. And this is probably just the tip of the iceberg, what we're seeing right now. And it actually is really worrying. Again, when you mentioned about the Ozempic kids and the kind of chemical hacking that is taking place from such a young age. And is that where we're heading? Is it just going to be a yo-yo existence of, okay, cool, so this is your issue, take this drug for that. Oh, well, I've taken this drug, now I've developed, I don't know, deficiencies with my organs. Or you mentioned these kids being effectively clinically depressed. Are they then going to be prescribed antidepressants? And it's very seedy. It fills me with nothing positive.
I think Ozempic was, I think it was in America first, shock that it was actually approved as a weight loss drug.
Yeah.
And I'm very skeptical of anything that sort of comes out of there medical wise. You look at I wanted to mention, like opioids, for example, the sort of opioid fad that occurred in the US, where you had like OxyContin, Percocets, marketed as like this kind of miracle painkiller, and they said the pharmaceutical companies said it's not addictive. That was the big point. This was an effective painkiller that was not addictive. That was a lie. They are highly addictive, and they ended up ruining lives. People died. People lost their livelihoods through the opioids, and it was never given the same approval in the EU or in the UK. And thank goodness we didn't go down that America route. I do just worry that it has been approved by the EU for diabetes, and I'm pretty sure it's also been approved for weight loss as well. And I just kind of worry. I don't trust any kind of pharmaceutical medical trend that comes out of America, because of just the way the free market runs on pharmaceuticals. There, it's extremely. It just fills me with dread. So that's one thing I'll definitely worry about. And yeah, as you said, Nordisk there. I mean, that's the bottom line, isn't it? There's so much money in this, and then no doubt, they'll be conducting studies on the long-term effects, and they'll probably find issues. And it's like, oh, great, look, we've created a problem through Ozempic, but now we can create a solution and then sell that. And then when there are people who are having digestive issues or bone issues or depression or whatever, it's great. It's just sort of like it amplifies the possibilities and it creates just continually creating a bigger market of people to sell drugs to. And I just want to say another unintended consequence of Ozempic, RIP Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers is going down. It's going bust. And they've said basically like no one fucking needs Weight Watchers now because people are just turning straight to Ozempic. They're not even trying to lose weight in a sort of natural, holistic way. It's just straight, again, sort of circle back to that easy solution. Well, I want to lose weight, I want to lose it now. Why bother with Weight Watchers? And so, I just want RIP. Like that's a tragedy. That's an absolute travesty. And who knows? Is that, as you said, you talked about like the personal trainers, the dietitians, the nutritionists. Is this going to have a knock-on effect for them? What's the economic fallout of Ozempic going to be?
Is it also going to have a hugely detrimental impact on our nutritional awareness and the food market available to consumers moving forward? Already there's a lot of skepticism as to the quality of foods available in supermarkets, for example. The amount of pesticides and preservatives and things like that you'll find in supposedly fresh fruit and veg. But are people now going to pay even less mind to the quality of the foods they eat because they think it's less important, because there is this drug, whether you do take it or whether you just put stock in the fact that it's proverbially on the shelf if you need it? Is it going to be the case that you can literally just rock up into a pharmacy and buy Ozempic off the shelf? Say you've had a heavy weekend, you've been out Toby Carvery, roast dinner, eating far more than you should have done. Is it going to be like the new hangover cure for for indulgence?
Well,
there's lots of hypotheticals. And
I was on the tube the other day, and I've got it here now. This is an advert I saw on the tube, and it said, "Medical weight loss is not cheating." Join 50,000 Juniper members taking the medical approach to weight loss.
50,000.
Take the quiz and see if you're eligible. That's dangerous. And there's a clinic not too far from where I live that sort of markets, get weight loss drugs here. So we're already seeing it. It's being advertised on the tube. It's being advertised on the street.
Yeah.
Before, I feel like it's kind of gone from the sort of Hollywood insider kind of secret thing, hasn't it, to spilling into the mainstream, taking over society. Eventually what's going to happen, Andy, is people are going to take so much Ozempic that they'll just disappear. We'll have Ozempic disappearances, and the police will be baffled. All they'll find is like an empty injection, and maybe just like a bit of dust. Oh, another one's gone. Another one's gone into the Ozempic void.
Well, overpopulation is still a very prevalent problem. Is that actually what we've stumbled upon here? Is that the aim of it all?
Ozempic's the answer. We've figured it out.
All right, let's order some. Let's order some now. Come on, quick! I need to get on it. Also, to complete my my utter tin hattery, in 4 phrases: Ozempic, the cost of living, the price of food, a jab sold as a viable avenue. Dear listener, you can tie that together. Another very real-world ramification that I think is extremely worth mentioning is that the demand comprised entirely of artificial and aesthetic-based need for Ozempic has actually meant that there's been shortages for diabetics who genuinely need it. So, again, like the intended purpose has been completely skewed by the financial capital of that it potentially evokes, and therefore, rendered those people that actually could benefit from could genuinely benefit health-wise from it, are now actually struggling to fucking access it.
Nah, fuck that, Andy. Fuck, diabetic people. Nah, they're not important. As long as the fitness mums can lose those extra pounds before the gals' holiday to the Italian lakes, then that's all that matters. You're missing the point. It's not about treating people, it's about looking good. So I don't know what you're on about.
Well, I am a missed point. And if you may, I have a long literary lamentation that might well explain what I'm on about. Needless to say, a needle parade is a ghastly occasion, whether recreational or prescribed. The difference lies behind conceited eyes, stoking belief in manufactured jibes. They rain down on us the desire to live test tube lives. Valor and nobility belong to outdated designs. Why slave for aesthetic prosperity when you can find all that and more from ignoring doctors' advice? And what chance do crumbling health services have to stand against the tide of miracle drugs that shorten wastes and waiting rooms? Fast track towards the speedy boarding of chemical monsoons. Nay, will there be left a body untouched? Call us the molested platoon. 'Cause once you get a taste for plastic, you simply can't breathe without it. Inhale the wrappers. It used to be liposuction for afters. Now we boast a buoyant need to not eat toast. And brand appetites old fashion. Come forth slithering are the same deficient lizard beings that flew the flag for body positivity, plus size acceptance and model inclusivity, now swimming in pools of their own celebrated secretion, pushing in your face the weight of a health-oriented frame that's upped and abandoned them. And how eyes of the herd flock to follow the misguided leaders, little more than scantily clad leeches, professing the status they all seek, so one by one idea becomes the sheep, grazing in fields of sycophancy, so determined and desperate to flaunt an acceptable image, they drain the resource for the intended cohort the medicine is genuinely beneficial for. So instead they get dosed laughs and jokes, as parallels are paraphrased in put down quotes, separating the trendy from the spiritually broke. Society believes it needs to sheath some pounds, but only understands exercise and endeavour as the next tightening rope.
Wonderful.
That's what I'm on
Really
about,
enjoyed
son.
That's what, it's interesting. You made a reference there to liposuction.
Mm.
I guess the only maybe one positive of Ozempic could be it'll stop people from having invasive surgery to have their stomach stapled.
But
That's maybe just one thing, particularly if they're going to go to Turkey and have some cowboy surgeon staple their stomach and then bleed to death afterwards, because that has happened.
that has happened. But do you not think that I think there's a similarity with the cigarette thing there, that people, they can't be under no illusion that there's an inherent risk with doing something like that. So I kind of feel like if you do that, there's almost an element of karma to it. You know, it's not, that's not, the system hasn't thrust that upon you as a friendly beneficiary. You know, you've actively sought that out yourself. It's a bit rogue by definition, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I'm not justifying it or saying it's that some people have been forced to. Just saying, maybe someone who was thinking of going to Turkey to get their stomach stapled might now be able to say, well, because if you're doing that, you're lazy in the first place, aren't you? That means you can't be asked exercising or changing your diet.
It's true.
So then maybe it's all right, I'll try
Yeah.
Ozempic instead. I feel like we have to be balanced here, and that is the one. I think that is at least one of the potential positives of this, because I've read a few articles about people who've been to Turkey to have weight loss surgery, and they several people have died from it, or they've had they've had to have like their stomachs removed afterwards. Really, really nasty things. So I guess it's sort of like maybe switching cigarettes for vapes, because vapes are sort of marketed as a healthy alternative or a healthier alternative to cigarettes, or even like a kind of stepping stone to quitting smoking entirely.
Yeah.
But ironically, vapes have way more nicotine than cigarettes, so they're actually way more addictive. They don't have the tar and all that stuff, but goodness knows what chemicals are in there to make them smell and taste like your blue ice, raspberry crush, cotton candy, express flavor.
Yeah, not good.
And
Give me opioids any day.
that's the next one.
I
That's the next one.
think it's
Um,
wonderful that we're ending this on such a positive note.
that's what we do. Um, right, well, I'm gonna go take my Ozempic now. One
Nice, me
o'clock is
too.
Ozempic
Yeah,
time.
I've just started injecting mine. If you sign up now, use the code Jeremiad50 to get your first box free.